Do you expect us to believe that it is a mere coincidence that you repaid over $40,000 of expenses associated with your travel on a We charity trip, that you just repaid it today on the same day you were expected to testify under oath about it? Is that just a coincidence, Minister?
If you thought this scandal couldn't get any bigger or more convoluted, well, you were completely wrong. It was a very straightforward, simple. He gave the contract to his buddies. Now, looks like they got handouts. The We charity that got it isn't the one we all thought it was.
Much, Mr. Minister, for a very thorough explanation in terms of your involvement. We'll now go to questions in the first round, 6 minutes, and we will go to our about 55 minutes of questions. The lineup is Mr. Poilievre first, then Ms. Kotrakis, then Mr. Fortin, and then Mr. Angus. Mr. Poilievre, you're on deck, sir.
Do you expect us to believe that it is a mere coincidence that you repaid over $40,000 of expenses associated with your travel on a We charity trip, that you just repaid it today on the same day you were expected to testify under oath about it? Is that just a coincidence, Minister?
Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think what I want to make sure that I communicate is this was a mistake on my behalf. I'm responsible for any expenses that I incur on trips being paid for. This was an expense that I was unaware of, that I did not know had not been paid. And when I found that out over the course of the last
$41,000 expense, you didn't know about a $41,000 expense? How is that even possible?
Mr. Minister.
Again, Mr. Chair, I just have to say that in review of our records, I understood that there was no charge for these travel expense or these expenses at the We facilities. And once I found that out, I endeavored to repay that. And of course, it was a mistake on my part, which I take full responsibility for.
I mean, the average Canadian living in Red Deer or Halifax that goes on a trip would notice if there was say a $400 expense that they didn't pay, maybe a hotel room for a couple of nights that never got charged them, and they paid immediately. But you're telling me that on this obviously very luxurious trip, that $41,000 of expenses happened right under your nose, and you didn't know about it until it suddenly, through an epiphany, came to your attention the very day you were to testify in a parliamentary committee about it. You expect us to believe that?
Mr. Chair, is for me.
There's no one else to answer for you, Mr. Morneau. You're the one.
Sorry, I was muted, Mr. Minister. Yes, you got the floor.
As I said, this was a mistake on my behalf. We immediately looked at our records. We reviewed those records to find the flights and the hotel expenses that were paid, and did not find any expenses that were charged to us for the time at the We facilities. When we went through our records in detail and concluded that, we realized, my wife and I, that we needed to have someone reach out to the We organization, and did that in order to pay those expenses. It is my mistake. It is a mistake that I regret. I apologize for that. And as I said, I will definitely work with the Ethics Commissioner, including this issue, to make sure it's fully understood and accounted for.
Back to Mr. Poilievre.
Do you realize that originally accepting these free benefits associated with your trip was strictly illegal under the Conflict of Interest Act? Yes or no?
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Chair, we of course, recognize that we are responsible for our own expenses. That is my responsibility. It was something I was unaware of, and so that
Do you realize it was
being
illegal?
unaware,
Do you realize now that it was illegal?
Mr. Minister.
that those expenses, which I was unaware of, were appropriately my expenses, and that's why we've repaid them.
You realize, though, that it was illegal. You are, as a minister, strictly forbidden from accepting any form of sponsored travel under the Conflict of Interest Act. I'm asking you, do you realize that the Act makes it illegal for you to have accepted these expenses paid for by we in the first place? Do you realize that that was illegal? Yes or no?
Mr. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as I've said, I looked back in a detailed fashion over my records. I found that that we received no expenses notice for these expenses. As soon as we found that out, we endeavored to make sure those payments were made, and it's a mistake. I will and
all right. Thank you very much.
Work with the Ethics Commission.
Did you in the month of August 2019 announce a grant for We Charity for $3 million in the same month that your daughter accepted a job from that organization? Yes or no?
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to know that program, which I did announce, was developed and delivered by Employment and Social Development Canada.
Simple question.
As the person who was responsible for that organization in the riding, I did announce that program.
So you announced a $3 million grant to an organization that had just hired your daughter the very same month. True statement or false statement?
My microphone is on.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chair,
Mr. Minister.
Thank you. I want to be very clear that this is a program that was developed,
true or false?
Delivered by the Employment
Minister,
and Social Development Canada. I announced it on behalf of our government, but was not involved in the development of that program.
Your daughter accepted a position with that organization.
Pierre, last question.
So in the same month as your daughter accepted a position with the organization, you announced a $3 million grant to that organization. You can just tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Mr. Chair, I'm obviously very proud of the fact that Grace took on a co-op job at the We organization. I'm proud of the fact that she, of her own accord, went out and got a first job in an administrative capacity. And obviously, my role as a minister is separate and distinct from that. I did deliver an announcement, but I was not involved in the development or the understanding of that program.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a steady drip. It's Niagara Falls coming out on this scandal. How the We Charity that had no other financial dealings was the one that really signed it, not the one that we all thought it was. That's just crazy. Leave your comments below. More to follow. Have a good day.